Hey guys, happy Saturday. You know what that means? It's time for me to talk about an episode of a superhero animated series. And today, I will be talking about the Batman the Animated Series episode, Night of the Ninja. So if you haven't seen this episode, I will be spoiling it in all kinds of ways. So go watch it, or let me spoil you, whatever you want to do. And this goes to you folks who have seen the episode, but it's maybe been a while. This can be a little refresher course for what all went down in this episode for you folks. This episode is a pretty simple one. A man from Bruce Wayne's past is robbing and vandalizing various Wayne Enterprises locations, partly to get revenge on Bruce for ruining him in the martial arts world when Bruce was a young man, and also because he wants the money. We get clips of Bruce's time in Japan, and we see exactly what went down between this bad egg, as Alfred calls him, and young Bruce. And in the present day, Bruce and Gotham reporter Summer Gleason are both kidnapped by the thief. Robin shows up to distract Summer Gleason so that Bruce can fight without having to worry about protecting his secret identity. With the ninja thief defeated, Bruce is confident that they won't have any more problems, and if they do, then Bruce can just defeat him again. Cue credits. This episode is pretty rocking solid, if I do say so myself. The very broad premise is very similar to a two-part story from Legends of the Dark Knight called Tao. That story had a guy that Bruce met during his training years coming to Gotham as part of an assassination job, but also to taunt Bruce Wayne. At first, I was thinking that this episode was borrowing from that two-part story, but actually this episode came out roughly a year before Tao did in the comics. I will say I've always enjoyed seeing bits of Bruce's past from his training days. I don't think we would ever need to see a whole heck of a lot of it all at once, but every once in a while, in small doses, it is pretty cool, I think. And in this episode, we get to hear Kevin Conroy's version of young Bruce, which is a mixed bag in my humble. On the one hand, I like that Conroy is at least making the attempt to differentiate young Bruce from current day Bruce, but his voice is just so naturally deep anyway that it's very hard for me to buy him as a dude in his early 20s or younger. This is not to say that Conroy is a bad actor. That would be stupid to say that. Conroy is clearly gifted because of how he differentiates Bruce Wayne's outdoors voice from Batman's air quotes normal voice. But I am saying that he's maybe not the best at doing young Bruce Wayne as seen in this episode. I am finding more and more that I am not really a fan of this world's Robin. I love roughly 3/4 of the Robins from the comics, all for different reasons, but I think the people behind the show are all trying too hard to make him the annoying, quippy sidekick. This episode did have one funny line, the moment when Robin, doing his interpretation of Bruce's bat voice, said, "Thanks for saving my bacon, Robin." But other than that, almost everything Robin says and does in this show is annoying. The bit where he stopped the ninja guy from killing Batman with a sword, that could have been a really cool bad butt reveal for Robin. Like, oh, all this time I just thought he was the kid who Batman took with him to draw enemy fire, but it turns out he's good enough to be able to save Batman's life. And then he starts saying stupid stuff like, "Batman may be a jerk, but he's my pal. I won't let you fillet him." Come on, I have to believe the people behind this show actually went and found someone to write bad dialogue for Robin, because I cannot believe that these guys did this on purpose themselves. I love the idea of Bruce being in a situation where he has to fight for his life, and presumably the life of someone else, but he has to do so in a way where he can protect his identity. Although I'm fuzzy on a few things, like why the ninja thief guy wanted to kill Bruce in the first place. Yeah, in the flashback, he made Bruce a promise that he would take everything precious to Bruce, hey, sorta like Season 2 of Arrow. But he had at least 10 years to strike, right? I don't get why he waited so long. Admittedly, this is a problem with this show, with it being episodic, where one episode does not reference the events of the previous episode. This episode won't really mention the fact that Batman has been being Batman for at least 9 years. Also, it seemed like the ninja guy's whole plan was just to rob Bruce of all of his riches, and then leave him a broken and miserable man, presumably. Him kidnapping Bruce and Summer seems like something that happens just because the episode is 2/3 of the way over and something needs to happen to get the climax of the episode rolling. This whole idea of the ninja taking everything that is precious to Bruce, it almost seems like something that could be done as a multi-episode arc. Yeah, I'm definitely saying that partly because I've seen this sort of thing happen across an entire season in Arrow, but even if I had not, the conceit of this villain seems like it just does not fit in one single episode. I know I'm terrible about this. The stories that are only one episode long, I complain about them not having enough room to breathe, and the two-part episodes, I complain about them being two-parters. But this does seem like something where this guy would spend like a decade planning his revenge against Bruce, and then maybe cap it off with killing Bruce. As it is, it just seems super rushed in this episode. One thing I haven't talked about for this episode was the Japanese influence on this episode. In one of the later episodes on this box set, in the commentary, Kevin Altieri said that he was influenced by a 1980s pornographic anime, Legend of the Overfiend, when creating a specific sequence in the episode. So there's proof that these guys, at least one of them, had their eye on Japanese pop culture when creating these shows. Sure, people like this, they have lots of influences. The Fleischer Superman stuff from the 1940s, the Phantom of the Paradise film from the 1970s, Alex Toth, these are just a few of the influences on these shows. So I don't want to overemphasize the meaning when I say that this episode draws from Japanese entertainment, because that's just one of many things that they were drawing from. And yes, I know that this episode is at least partly set in Japan in the flashbacks, and the villain is from Japan, and the themes rely heavily on ninja and martial arts training and stuff like that. But I'm not talking about that. In the episode, it just felt like we had a lot of anime-type animation. If you watch an anime from the 1980s, like Akira, or Grave of Fireflies, or My Neighbor Totoro, there is a sort of similar quality to the animation style that we get in this episode. It's hard for me to explain what I mean without pointing to specific things in this episode and the influences that I claim that this episode has. But know that when I talk about the influences, I mean that in a good way. I think seeing the connection between the anime of the 1980s and this series of the early 90s has made me enjoy this episode and even some of the other episodes of this series quite a bit more. Overall, I love this episode. I don't remember loving this episode as much the last time I watched it, but dang, this was just fantastic. Even the stuff that I thought could have been done better did not bring this episode down for me. And that's all I have to say here, folks. I hope you liked this episode as much as I did, and I hope you liked my review of it. If you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you did like this review, then come back next Saturday to see my review of an episode of Batman Beyond. And the week after that, I will be talking about another episode of Batman the Animated Series. And until then, come back throughout the rest of the week to see some other videos where I will be reviewing stuff. Until later, have a great day.